You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Hello everybody and welcome to Anime Crash Course. I'm your humble host Kev, and today we have a wonderful cast of guests on. We have Cian.
Hello.
We have Keith.
Hello.
And we have, returning from our Promised Neverland episode, we have Lisa from Straight Outta Kanto.
Hi, boys.
Hey girl, hey. And today I am delighted that we are covering the absolutely hilarious sit-rom com Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun.
There are no words to describe how excited I was when this won the vote.
Cian has been a cluster of just pure excited energy since we announced recording this.
Yeah, and it should be stressed. I'm not like a Japan fan on the level that the three of you are, but I have a very special attachment to this show in particular.
It's really funny for that, because for the first time in Anime Crash Course history, this is a show I had not watched before going into it.
Ooh.
Yes,
well then, why don't you give us your impressions of what it was like?
I will, but first, I think we should dive into a little bit of background on Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun.
Okay.
So, first, the original. So, Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun, the anime, is based on a 4-panel manga that is produced by Izumi Tsubaki. It was originally published online through Gangan Online, a free online webcomic site, but then was later published in digital volumes on Shoujo Romance Girly, and physically it was then distributed via Square Enix.
No way.
Yeah, Square Enix are aside from obviously being a goddamn monstrous video game corporation, they're just they're a common media distributor as well.
Okay, God, learn something new every day.
Yeah, the more you know. Gaining popularity from its webcomic, an anime adaptation was announced in 2014, and that was produced by Studio Dogakobo and directed by Mitsui Yamazaki. So Dogakobo is a sort of well-known studio, dealing mostly in kind of slice of life comedy shows, such as How Heavy Are the Dublins You Lift, and the kind of a personal drama from this month, Seeing Yesterday for Me. And Mitsui Yamazaki seems to work quite closely with Dogakobo, and was also the director of How Heavy the Dublins You Lift, and also found out through a bit of digging, turns out he was an episode director on Bleach, so he's got a little bit of cred there. And he's also currently directing the currently running fantasy comedy show Sleepy Princess and the Demon Castle.
It's so funny that all those disparately talented elements came together to tell this tiny love story in the grand scheme of things.
I love just kind of going on the manga for a sec, because I did have a look at it. It's funny to me that this is like a rom-com newspaper short. This is effectively Schoolgirl Garfield.
Yeah, it's very simple, but the execution of it is incredibly complex. Obviously the kind of biggest comparison is the dragon thing we saw a few months ago, which is named I can never ever remember. Yeah. But even that had quite a lot of lore to it. This is just really simple, and yet the comedy tropes are very old-fashioned, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of slapstick. It's very there's a little bit of kind of Looney Tunes in it, I found.
Well, I didn't even like that. I mean proper Shakespearean old-fashioned. You have a guy who fancies another guy who doesn't know that his mortal enemy, all that kind of proper old-fashioned stuff. Not kind of stuff you'd see on modern comedies,
Yeah, I get that, yeah. But I think at least kind of going back to the manga, it being kind of by nature of being a 4-panel manga, it's very just, joke, setup, punchline, just kind of like quick concessions. And so it's
I
funny
didn't
kind of,
know it was a 4-panel manga originally, and I actually think that clears a few things up for me, because one of the things I kind of found about the show, now while I did immensely enjoy it, I found a lot of it not disjointed. It just didn't, and it wasn't sloppy. There was just a certain lack of cohesion that I found was a bit disconcerting throughout. And actually, if they're trying to kind of fill in gaps around things that were kind of one-off, as you said, Garfield style, kind of 4-panel gags, then that actually kind of makes sense to the anime, because I found the main negative for me was just that there was a lot of kind of characters who'd come in, then they'd kind of go away, and and that's kind of common in comic strips, and that's fine. But I can see now that they were probably trying to piece together a whole story out of maybe lots of little stories.
yeah, I kind of get that. Okay, before we get really into the grass of talking about the show, let's kind of break down what the show is actually about. for those of you that might not know. So, Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun it's a high school rom-com. But the entire conceit of it is that we have our main character, Chiyo Sakura, tries to confess her love to the tall, quiet, stoic Umino Nozaki. And after blundering her way through it, accidentally, instead of confessing her love to her, becomes his assistant in creating manga. Therefore, finding out that he is secretly a shoujo manga author, hijinks ensue therein.
Yeah, and actually to build on Lisa's point, like I think the fact that they are writing a sort of monthly romance comic and living one at the same time helps to kind of pave over that sort of disjointedness. Do you know what I mean? Because he's always looking for little sources and ideas and all that kind of stuff, completely oblivious that he's in one, you know?
I think what I'd say is I get what you're coming from with it feeling disjointed, Lisa. And that it is very much just kind of joke after joke after joke. Or just like kind of comic to like piecemealing these kind of disparate comics together. I'll think, like, in my opinion though, the jokes and the comedy are so strong in this case, I didn't notice the lack of cohesion. Because like it's such like it keeps up such a fast pace that like it's going from beat to beat to beat so quickly, I'm not lingering on what's just happened.
I think that hinders it at times as well in terms of plot.
I
Because
think that's
while, like I said, it's a great show, and when the laughs are there, they are proper belly laughs. Like that first episode, I think, was probably the strongest episode, followed by the Sailor Girl episode. But I felt that in terms of actual plot overall, it was quite kind of, excuse the pun, but 2D, very kind of superficial and shallow, because all the emphasis was on gags, and a lot of the gags became very repetitive because like they were still funny, but you kind of, it was all, you know, oh, this is this situation, what it's not, you know what I mean? So that was yeah, it just kind of got a bit repetitive, I think, in terms of the gags, and I do think it kind of hurt the plot a bit.
Yeah.
But see, I didn't. Sorry, do you want to go first, Keith? Because I appreciate you've been quiet for a long time.
Oh no, I was actually just kind of agreeing with Lisa there. Like I didn't realize it was a 4-panel comic either. Well, when you said that, made complete sense to me. And what I really enjoyed it, and when the gags hit, they really hit. But sometimes they'd repeat a gag they just done, and I was just like, all right. And they had a habit of telling a joke, showing the manga version of it, and just sort of repeating the same joke seconds later, and that kind of just killed it for me at points.
Yeah, same.
But see, I didn't think of it as having a plot. I thought that it was just a bunch of short episodes, basically 2 10-minute episodes per episode. And then the through line was, will they get together or not? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that.
Like, there's kind of 3 couples floating about, isn't there? There's, I mean, I suppose, Kev, you probably know best about the characters.
I say that with a list of them in front of me.
Yes, thank you. Go to your flowchart.
But yeah, like that's because I went in with kind of no real knowledge of what the show was about, and then just kind of like within 2 episodes, I was like, oh, it's a sitcom. And then like any kind of idea of like an overarching plot was kind of thrown out the window. It was like, oh, I'm just here to laugh. That's kind of what that was my expectations of it then.
Okay. Well, I
like,
suppose
if you were
Yeah,
going
sorry,
in
you go, Kev.
expecting, I think if you were going in expecting a shoujo, like a shoujo romance anime, kind of in the style of Fruit Basket, you know, expecting a harem basically. Well, no, okay, not expecting like a harem with its tropes, but like expecting a romance with a romance plot. I can see where you'd be disappointed, but going into it under the guise of a sitcom, I think it succeeds gracefully. And so yeah, so I think like with the kind of the big thing, obviously, and it kind of understanding it as a sitcom, the core of its premise, its plot, and its action is its characters. So we'll kind of do a little bit of a dive into its characters. So we have about kind of 7 odd kind of main cast. So we have, as I mentioned, Chio Sakura, who would kind of be the audience surrogate in a sense. She the point of view character. You have Umino Nozaki, who's the titular character, the romantic foil to your point of view, and also the action of the plot. Him always kind of trying to find examples for his manga, and then kind of the rest of the characters are foils for the two of them, and also inspirations for his manga. And in that light, I think a lot of these characters shine. Because let's say, for example, like the first one we're introduced to, Mikoto Mikashiba, or Mikuri, the
favorite
redhead,
character.
who wonderfully originally kind of introduced as like the kind of the cool, flirtatious, like kind of cool anime boy, but has this wonderful quirk of saying these incredibly cheesy lines and then immediately just sinking into a dread of embarrassment. And that's a joke I don't think got old.
Yeah, and it's actually, I know you've got characters to list, but I believed these characters as teenagers in a way I quite often don't in the Japanese anime I've seen. I've known teenagers who are like big and sort of flirty and all that kind of stuff, and then they kind of curl up into a ball in private, or like, you know, the violent, crazy ones, or like the kind of like
Jesus, what kind of teenagers are you dealing with in your teaching?
Oh, as a student, Black Rock. As a teacher, Tala.
All kinds.
Okay,
But like I think that's it. Like these characters have flaws that you wouldn't find in a lot of other characters in these kind of genre pieces, or in these kind of romance pieces, which just makes them feel a little more down to earth. Like my personal favorite is Yuzuki Seo, who is just the most gremlin person, and I love her. This brash, abrasive, offensive, just dipshit, who ends up being the inspiration for kind of the rival character in Nozaki's manga, and like she's just an asshole to kind of everyone in a very passive aggressive sense, and even Sakura just basically explains like, no, we just had a bunch of classes together. That's kind of how we just hung out.
Yeah, but like it's I was getting big Bakugo vibes off this from My Hero Academia, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I just found her so one-dimensional. She was my least favorite character of all. I thought they were going to do way more with her. I think she was a very underdeveloped character, and I really think padded her out a bit more. They could have given her like but then again, look, this is apparently this isn't going to be a plot-heavy anime, so there's probably no point me complaining about.
Well, no, it's
like that's kind of.
I just felt like she had such great potential, and they never really fulfilled that, and it was kind of sad. And then she just really annoyed me at the end, and my eyes had kind of glazed over till the scene with her was done.
That's
well,
fair.
I think she kind of, the funny thing was, in the scenes where she was one-on-one with someone, most often the guy who hates her and fancies her, she's actually quite grounded and down to earth. It's kind of, when she's in big groups, she becomes hell incarnate. And I wasn't sure if that was a intentional thing or not, but I found that to be interesting, like kind of, because that's quite a lot like the way the flirty character is like big and bold in public, but then in private he like curls up into a ball and dies, you know.
Yeah, I think again, going into it just with this kind of surface level expectation for myself, I just the sheer energy that she had, I just found enjoyable to watch. Which actually, I suppose we've clear up now. How did you all watch it? Subbed or dubbed? Cian.
Oh, subs.
Subbed. Cian.
Funnily enough, the first time I watched it, I did watch it sub. I watched it dub this time around, and I think rarely for me, I actually did prefer the sub. Nothing against the English voice cast because they were fantastic, but like, there's just something about Japanese manic energy voice actors, like, you know, it's just I don't know if it's a cultural thing or maybe it's just my own kind of personal biases, but like they really go for it in the Japanese, you know.
I'd even just say that it was just a particularly solid cast. Sorry, Keith, how did you watch it as well?
I actually I started watching it with the sub, and I was struggling a little bit, and then I told my friend Donnie I was watching it, and he's like, "I'll try the dub," and I actually really enjoyed the localization. I just breezed through it in a day after watching it with the dub, and a lot of the little localization I thought really worked, and it helped me. Like, it helps the comedy. I tend to find dubbed comedy a little bit harder to go with, because I find that the pacing's a bit weird, and it's harder to get a joke when they're reacting, but you're still reading, especially because I'm super dyslexic. So
Yeah, well, that's a fair point because this one, even by the standards of comedy, this one moves incredibly fast. If with the sub, you'd have to give it 100% of your attention. But maybe for yourself, Lisa, who watches so many of these, you wouldn't like have that experience.
Well, as someone who managed to watch like Sayonara Zetsuko Sensei, where you'd have like about 4 different Japanese subtitles going on at the same time, it was okay, but even I agree there was a lot going on, and if you're not giving it your 100%, you're going to miss out. I think that might have been my downfall with a few of the episodes, and probably why I didn't get as much out of it as I could, is the subs were going so fast. I'm like, okay.
I'm gonna just admit that for this month, I ended up watching the entire show twice.
Yes, clap, clap, clap.
I watched it through in the sub, thoroughly enjoyed it, and like again with the Japanese voice actors, just with the energy they brought. And you know what? I was having a rough week, and I didn't know what else to do, so I just was like, this show made me happy. I'm just gonna watch this. So I just blitzed through the entire thing then in a day with the dub, and yeah, like while the cast is very very good, I found I prefer the sub. Just again with the energy and the tones that the Japanese actors were getting out.
But like, I'm really kind of, because like we seem to be kind of split down the middle on our kind of opinions on it, and I think Kev, that's kind of a first for this show, is it? We've generally had a pretty consistent consensus, right, on the other shows.
No, it's this is not the first, and Lisa knows exactly why.
Yeah, I'm usually
we've had this
that doesn't like anything.
Lisa is bringing the contrarian energy she brought on a Promised Neverland episode.
No, look,
You didn't like Promised Neverland?
I thought the first episode started off really strong. I really painfully identified with, I think, both Nozaki-kun and Chio, in the sense that, you know, being that dense and then being that friend zoned. Do you know what I mean? In romance, you know, like that scene at the end of the first episode where she's trying to ask him out, and he's like, oh, you want an autograph? And she's like, okay. And then at the end, when she's trying to ask him out, and he gives her a second autograph, and she's there, it's like, you know, Mrs. Doyle when she gets the Tea Master in the Christmas episode of Father Ted, and she's there like, oh, this is great, an autograph, and she's there bawling internally, but she can't. Like, that was like, that had me screaming laughter, because it was a genuinely funny thing, but also it was very relatable, and I've also been Nozaki-kun as well. And I remember Cian last week on Nerd to Know, when we were having a pre-chat, you were like, "Oh, we've all been there, you know. We've been Nozaki dense and kind of Chio, kind of rejected." So I think that's what started off really strong for me, and then I thought it was going to follow more of that, but then it kind of, her love for Nozaki kind of died off a little. And then it kind of became more about the manga, which I don't know about you guys, but I really enjoyed the manga creation aspect of the show. Now, it is something we've seen before in other anime and manga, and for that, so it wasn't really that fresh, but I really enjoyed that. But then it kind of, then it almost felt like whenever they did the kind of building up, oh, he's going to ask me out, or he got a gift for me, oh, it wasn't what, it kind of felt a bit like tacked on, or that it was just an afterthought. So what started off as what I thought was going to be the premise of the show, plot-wise, kind of trailed off into something that never really went anywhere, a bit like my point now.
Well, Duke, see, I like these characters so much that I don't mind that, and I think that if every episode was her getting her hopes up and getting shot down, it'd almost become too painful. Do you know what I mean? If they just kind of hit that button.
They could have done things with that though, or built it up a bit differently.
That's fair.
I just thought that's where it was going to go, and then they brought in so many other characters, and then it became about other things. It felt disjointed, but again, if they're basing it off mangas, and if you even key and copped that immediately and started taking it as separate episodes or stories as opposed to one cohesive thing, then you're totally kind of on the money with your observations there.
That's fair, actually. I suppose we are kind of coming from different points because, like, me and Kev watched it twice, kind of knowing what to come into, and you guys kind of are coming off the first watch. Do you think that'll be a factor? Like,
Definitely, yeah.
I think actually,
I will, yeah.
Sorry, I will agree with Lisa on one point in that starting off, my first watch with it, I thought that they would kind of go very headfirst into the manga creation, into kind of like some of the process involved there, and there's bits of it, but I think I expected more of it in a very kind of a Shirobako sense. And it was kind of like, kind of let down. I was a little let down.
It just seemed like it was going to be more about that. Then it kind of disappeared for a few episodes, and then finally in like episode 6, kind of parts of 6, and majorly in episode 7, then it was like, pow, back into the manga. So, but again, if this wasn't one big plot, then I suppose that makes sense. But could we just talk for a minute about the like bromance between Mikoshiba and Nozaki-kun, because that was my favorite thing in the entire series.
Oh yeah. Oh, one of my favorites is the whole
Mikoshiba being
the redhead.
The redhead chap. Yeah.
Oh yeah, like one of my favorite scenes is.
God, he was a giant weeb.
Yeah, them with the dating sims. God, it's so funny. It's just and how he keeps trying to apply things he's learned from dating sims to actual life.
Oh God,
terrible repercussions.
Screaming with laughter during that when they're like, oh, we're gonna have a sleepover, and Sayori's like, oh, that's so cool, what do you guys do? And it's like, I give him love advice, and she's all like, oh wow, so impressed, and then it's just them with their little dating sim. Actual screams of laughter for that, and then him and his little I showed you figurines, and it's like, oh, pervert. So sweet.
But that's kind of an aspect I liked about it too, though, which was that you've got Nozaki, who is this, like, we're assuming kind of prestigious romance writer who understands romance, like, as a mathematical formula, but apply that to every other aspect of life, like helping the poor chap ask the singer out, and he is completely useless. He tries to romantically surprise Sakura by being a chair.
Or even when he's there,
like it's like he's an alien.
Like, you know, the episode where engage more with characters on emotional level, and kind of like, so he goes around making lunch for everybody, or, you know, kind of trying to girl a bit to kind of basically do a bit of method acting for his manga. I just thought that was adorable. Like, it's there.
That's just it.
It's like what you're saying about the mathematical formula. He knows how to do this and that, but he's trying to add more depth to it.
That's just it. Or like the bike sequence in the first episode. He understands. I'm trying to think of a better example than like an alien, but he understands it scientifically, but not like in practical terms. Like
I've got it in the most D&D way I can push the bottom. He's got high ass intelligence. He's got like a 20 in intelligence and just a 6 wisdom.
Yeah.
He understands it on a fundamental level. He knows it. He knows it. He can't actually utilize it.
That's kind of like Nico Shiba with his ability to talk to girls on the surface, but then like dies of pure mortification shortly afterwards. Like, or like when he's trying to like learn how to talk to girls for the dating party, but he can't, and it's just like he clearly has like some sort of like high charisma, but like low confidence or something.
Yeah, and then compare that to Kashima, the prince character, who has essentially the same superpower. But like, so you have kind of a pairing of her and is Hori the school drama guy,
Yeah,
who like everyone is in love with like the prince character, and she only has eyes for him, and he has eyes for her, and yet they're both. It's very unclear whether they know they like each other or not, and that's why I kind of was drawn to them the most, because I found that to be the most realistic representation of
It's
a couple
very
or couple
kind
to
of
be.
scenario.
Aside from the rampant physical abuse.
I think Kev said it best in the show notes he shared with us in the chat group, like at the beginning of the watch of this, where he just said all characters are dumb as a bag of hammers, but the opening is a banger. That just summed up the whole show for me.
Yeah, can we actually? Because can we talk about the opening for a sec? Because I noticed more things every single time. Like when they're fighting that raccoon thing, you can actually see comic panel windows in the sky. Tamaki, sorry. And you can see comic panel windows in the sky as if they are in a comic and they are up there. And also, like when he lifts Sakura Chio into the air, that it looks like they're looking at each other until you notice there's a black frame between them and her hair goes behind it. So that's like a lovely detail to show that, like, no, these two are not together and not looking at the same thing. I absolutely love it and pretty answers to it. So it's 10 out of 10 for me.
I was too busy like bopping away to it to pay attention to that what was actually happening. I just love that song.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Preach there, Keith. Man, that opening, like I noticed little bits of the actual like details of the animation, but man, that song is a jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I sent y'all a picture of Miss Buttons absolutely glued to the screen during that, so it's got my hamster's seal of approval.
And
She loves the opening.
It is a crime. It is not like available for streaming anywhere.
Yeah. What, the song? Or?
Yeah.
Yar.
Why not? Is there like some sort of licensing thing? Or?
Oh, just it's kind of a grab bag when it comes to anime openings being released in the West. Just for
We'll have a conversation after the show, Kev.
Oh yeah. Just like depends on kind of like that's a whole kind of like just Japanese band licensing thing. Not within the realm of topic right now. That's a whole other podcast.
But yeah, so like I think we've covered most of the characters now. I think we just haven't gotten to
well, I mean, there's
Wakamatsu
Wakamatsu
and Seo.
Well, there's Wakamatsu, and that's about all there is to say about Wakamatsu. I only ever really saw him as being Seo's punching bag, and that's about all he achieves.
Yes, but I think he embodies kind of the male equivalent of what the main character is going through, in that sort of he is devotedly in love, but that comes out as paranoia, if that makes sense. I very much relate to that. It's like, she's looking at me. What is she planning? That kind of thing, you know?
I kind of get that.
Which is very reasonable considering his love interest.
There is always an ulterior motive.
I also kept confusing him with Hori just because of their design. Every time they're on screen, like, which one's this?
That's fair. I think the way I was telling him apart is when he goes happy, he just becomes the two dots and the smiley face the most.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I parse them out.
I think I managed to separate them because I was fully convinced Hori was a grown-ass man for like 3 episodes. I did not know I did not clock that he was a student.
Well, that's
something about the tie.
yeah, like, because isn't she comes to the school because he's in the school, so he is a bit older than the rest of them, isn't he?
I think he's a third year.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
he's
know
like
how the Japanese school works.
I think he's like I think he's like an upperclassman compared to like most everyone else.
That's kind of
Okay.
how I felt about Nozaki-kun, because in the opening scene of the very first episode, when Shio's going up to him saying, "Oh, I'm going to ask him out," I thought she was trying to ask her teacher out, and I'm like, this is weird. Okay, thanks, Kev.
Yes.
Yeah, he's as
But then,
tall as
like,
Doug
turns out
Jones.
he's, actually a student, but then it's like, it's not just the stereotypical kind of big, muscular, anime teen. He genuinely, in his composure and his hairstyle and his kind of voice actor, the kind of mature deadpan kind of thing, he completely looks, even though I know he's a teenager, to me he's an adult. It's just so weird.
He's just
I'd
big,
agree,
mature
except he's too
man.
dense to be an adult.
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh,
Ian, have you
really?
met us?
Really?
Yeah, that's fair.
Ah. I don't know. I just think overall it's all kind of very real in just how they all interact with each other, and I think that's kind of what's unique, because it does because in kind of traditional kind of anime rom-coms, they do follow very stereotypical tropes, and they kind of have their tick the box characters. So even like I said, I did find this bit disjointed and messy. At least it was refreshing with its interactions. Everybody was kind of a wild card, that you think you knew someone but you didn't, and then it was kind of, they were all acting in a way that they don't normally act. It wasn't very formulaic.
Oh yeah, none of this cast felt stuck. Like no, I didn't feel like anyone fell into like one single trope. Everyone had like a little facet and little quirks to really make them feel individual.
But that's kind of the show's conceit, though, because there is an existing romance manga in the show's narrative. Kind of, if they were more conventional, then there'd be no point in having the two side by side. Do you know what I mean? It's like Nozaki-kun is trying to compress reality into a traditional romance type story. Do you know what I mean?
I get that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting. I never thought about that.
I've thought about this way too much.
Well, someone has. And I felt like I'd like to touch on just like one little note that like I just thought was a really cool concept that I just found very refreshing, was how Nozaki was kind of gender bent, like in a way gender bending his inspirations. Like he would take the inspiration for like your prototypical like shoujo female lead was Mikashiba. So like he's like, and your stereotypical male lead then was taken from
Seo?
no, Seo was kind of the brash rival.
No, the prince.
The prince.
Oh, the prince.
Kashiba.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was going to ask.
Even
Like,
Tomoko,
oh, sorry, you go first, Lisa.
His imaginary character friend from his dating sim, they all fell in love with him, like him and Mikoshiba fell in love with their character, and then they're like, let's make like a gay Tomoko boyfriend for Tomoko, and it was so organic and natural. It was just automatically like this dude's kind of love, and it wasn't, automatically, oh, let's just put a girl character with him,
Mm.
Like I think it was when I clocked that did I realize like, oh, this show doesn't fall into especially with comedy anime, they fall into kind of like tropes of just kind of stereotypically kind of misogynist jokes, and this show just sweeps right by most of them.
That
like-
being said, though, it was quite sleazy at times, which, considering how saccharine the show was, felt a bit tonally off at times.
I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm just saying it's better than a lot of stuff.
I'm intrigued. Sleazy how?
Yeah. So, just with regards to, so basically, like, now don't get me wrong, I love a good sleazy anime, but I think either you're going to go hard or go home. This felt like, oh, we're going to be a sweet, cutesy, klutzy, kind of slappy, happy kind of slapstick kind of show. But then, like, things like stuff that the prince was saying to the girls, if a guy said that, you know what I mean? And even just there was little things, and even the way they were like selecting the girls in the dating sim, and there was just a lot of things that, of course, it's Japan, okay, Japan, but then there was just a few things where I'm like, for a cutesy show, there's a few things, like I said, that just felt tonally off, and I'm like, either you're gonna have a big titty anime kind of rom-com, or you're just kind of gonna not keep it to the cutesy slice of life thing. So it just felt a bit weird at times.
That's fair. I didn't consider
But
that.
maybe I'm viewing that with a female perspective.
No, that's like, and like
I'm
the
really
like
woke,
obviously considering this is a love story from a woman's point of view, that perspective is essential. I just thought that, like with the kind of romance tropes, it was setting that stuff up to puncture it. Like, when he's asking for some like pictures, like some naughty magazines or something, and he keeps handing him the romance things, and he's like, "No, in color. Oh yeah, here's a full color print. Oh, pictures. Oh, here's a yearbook." Like, that kind of thing. Sort of setting it up to knock it down. Maybe I'm overthinking it though.
The scene with this. Does everybody remember the scene with the sailor uniform?
Oh God! Oh man! Okay, I don't want this to like devolve into us just explaining jokes, because that's radio suicide. That's
yeah.
No, like there is like if you want to look up like a scene that just epitomizes the best of the jokes in this, look up just Nozaki-kun sailor uniform, because it's a whole sequence, and it just had it had me wheezing laughing. I could not stop.
Well, I mean, you've hit upon a fair point though, Kev. Like, both describing and criticizing comedy is the hardest thing to make interesting. Do you know what I mean? So like, so I think kind of like, thank God this show has interesting characters to kind of talk about and latch onto in that respect. Like you said, it's like trying to describe a joke instead of telling it. Like,
oh yeah, no, like that's the worst way to just convince someone to watch anything. it actively puts them off it. So I don't know about you. I think we might call this episode a little early, because, as I said, without kind of going and just describing my favorite moments, I'm at a loss for words outside of just, I really enjoyed this show and I think everyone should go watch it. So I'll open the floor to you guys. Is there any kind of final thoughts that you have on it?
Sure, Keith, you go. You've been the most quiet so far.
Yeah, you have just been covering all the points, I guess. Yeah, no, I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. I highly recommend it as like, well, because I watched the dub. I think the dub is like the best passive watch ever. I watched it full attention, but I can easily see myself putting that on again while I'm playing like Tony Hawk or something, just like giggling in the background and enjoying it. Absolute recommendation. I also really liked how none of the characters, as you said, feel like typical romance characters. At least they didn't for me. They all had like their quirks, and their quirks that didn't seem like you've got this one trope and then one like divulgence on that. Like everything, they were like every episode they were like doing something a little bit different, a little bit new to their character. It wasn't out of character, but it was just like, oh, that seems like a natural extension of who this person is. And I feel like I've known a lot of these people, or at least, a less exaggerated version of these people. Yeah, I liked it. I laughed a lot, a surprising amount, and that opening song is a banger.
Gotta really hammer that point out, man. That opening slaps.
Yeah, even if you just want to watch it for the opening, like, no judgment. That's the way to do it.
And Lisa, have you got anything to finish off with?
Enjoyed it. There were laughs. In between the laughs, it fell flat. It was enjoyable, but kind of a bit throwaway. I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10.
All right. Okay. Yeah, fair. No, I'll give you that. Okay. So, while this was created in 2014, where in the year of our Lord 2020 now is Monthly Girls Nozaki-kun? So, to start off this section, I'm actually going to go back before the anime was produced, because in 2013, a drama, well, an audio radio show of the manga was produced. Now, it is only in Japanese, of course, but I would be fascinated to find out how they actually transcribe that.
Yeah.
Does it keep the awkward tuba music? If so, I will listen to it even if I don't understand it.
You'll get the vibe.
Forget the vibe. I want my tuba.
That's you know what? I think we have our first T-shirt. And outside of that, outside of that, then when the anime was being released for a physical Blu-ray release, 6 3-minute short OVAs were produced and packed in with it, which I watched gladly. And it's weird to call them 6 3-minute OVAs, because when you watch them strung together, they're one episode, and it's a beach episode. Of course it's a beach episode.
Oh my god, sure, didn't the Kobayashi thing have a joke about that? Like, of course, the inevitable beach episode or something like that.
Oh yeah, no, it's a trope that everything needs. Even Gurren Lagann has one. Come on, everything has to happen. I mean, like,
I did not know that about Gurren Lagann. Okay.
Depending on how you interpret the end of Evangelion, it has one.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh my god, I nearly spoiled it there.
But, that's a talk
Well,
for
even
another
in
day,
Nozaki-kun itself, there is the episode about the editor Maino where they talk about the importance of the seasonal episodes. You know, where you
my god,
February for Valentine's Day. Then of course the summer they've got the beach, and they've got festivals and stuff. So it of course it's gonna touch on that when it's parodied in the show.
Oh my god, I know we weren't going to just tell the jokes, but I love Nozaki-kun's slights to his former editor about asking for the summer thing. Oh, I can't wait for summer. Shame it's autumn. I know I've waffled on a fierce bit, but can I make one last point?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, I've caught as many of these episodes of the Anime Crash Course as I could, but sure, you guys know my situation. I have a young baba and a full house of adults, so I've honestly struggled to do the longer watches, like the Hellsing last week and kind of even like the time travel one and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it was a real joy just to find something this breezy and this easy to watch. And I'm not saying that I don't enjoy the more complex stuff, but all I'll say is there's a place for this, and it's very special, and I would love to find more stuff like this in the future.
And it is while you're trying to grapple with a 2-year-old.
Aww.
Well, that's just it, yes.
Oh, that's adorable. I don't feel like I could. You should have said this at the start, and I wouldn't have said anything.
No, it's because Lisa, I listen to your show. I really respect your expertise. I don't want to be trampling on your viewpoint and everything,
Oh no, I was just making a joke because I didn't know it was this special to you, so I would have been nicer about it. I don't.
Oh no. I like
blazing, tearing things down, but it's really nice to know that someone kind of it's great when you find a show or something that just kind of transports you away from kind of all the crap and can actually kind of resonate with you and kind of make you feel better. I think that's very important, especially.
Well, you know what? You gave me the opportunity to protect it, which is good in itself.
Well, Keith, I am glad to have your energy for your enthusiasm on this episode. I am happy to have it here. But let's reel from being real with each other until after the recording, because I gotta wrap this up.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
So, as it stands, there is currently no indication for any sort of a season 2. Unfortunately, given this long. However, the manga is still being produced to this day.
Ooh.
Still being printed and still being published online. So if you really liked the series, go back. There is now the better part of about 5 years worth of 4-panel manga to read online.
Hasn't Chio suffered enough?
Nope.
It's like the Stations of the Cross. There's just no end.
It's a
Oh my
vicious
God.
cycle.
I will commission an artist to do 12 Stations of the Cross, in which they are on a 2-person bike, in which he is a box, in which there is a
Yeah.
sailor suit.
And he gives her a second autograph.
The
Yes,
seventh
the
station is
content.
him covering with the coat.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're done.
I will
That's Monthly Girls
gladly do that
Nozaki-kun.
commission for you, Cian.
Lovely. Let's talk rates.
Done. That's it. Bye. So,
Bottle of
plug time.
sake and we're all good, friend.
Cian, where can people find you?
I'm taking a bit of a break from it, but I run the Game Corner also on the Nerd to Know Media page. Otherwise, I am currently reviewing Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Lower Decks on Geek Ireland, and you can find my written reviews there.
Excellent. Keith, where can people find you?
You can find me over on Instagram. That's pretty much all I do. At Dry Keith, with Keith spelled with two E's and a T. And my black metal band Horrenda just released a new music video called Axe Wound. That's on YouTube and Facebook and all that, and Instagram as well. So that's all I have.
Top-notch pun. I love it.
Yeah.
Is it like axe like guitar or axe like axe?
Yeah, axe like axe.
Oh, okay. Now even more intrigued.
Yeah.
And Lisa, where can people find more of you?
So I am the CEO of Straight Outta Canto, your Irish blog and podcast for nerd culture, nightmare fuel, and nostalgia. I am over on Facebook, Instagram, and I now write for J-horror resource site The Uray.
No
So
way!
everything weird and wonderful and creepy and crappy. I'm a girl.
Well, I will say you ray to that. You can follow me over on Twitter at KevTalika94, and you can find me on Nerd to Know Basis along with most everyone I have on this show at some point. Catch you on the network, and I'll see you all next month. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.